kind of as you were towards the top end of the Championship. It's down towards the bottom where things are starting to get a little bit interesting. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and another Roundup video as I look to round up round 19 of the Championship. Another Roundup which is riddled with a couple of annoying postponements, but we're going to run through them all. Nevertheless, starting on Friday night with Burnley 1, Boro 1. I was, of course, there in the away end. I've done a full Project Boro review of this game, as always, so do check that out if you want to hear my more in-depth thoughts. But this was a fair result between two very good teams who I thought gave each other just as good as what they got. Momentum swung both ways in each half. You know, Boro did take the lead, although I think it was against the run of play with a fantastic, well-taken goal by Boro, well carved open by Barlas, or well taken by Dijksteel. And as I said in my review, it was key that Boro scored first, because I feel like this Burnley team is so good defensively. You've got to really score first to stand a chance of getting anything, especially at Turf Moor. Boro did breach Burnley at Turf Moor, the first team to do that since September, but Burnley's response was absolutely outstanding, to which they dominated the rest of the first half. The goal, though, is one that Boro will not want to see again. A loop from Roberts catching out Seny Dieng, which is a real frustrating way to concede for Boro. But the game, I think, you know, across the board, looking at it, it was a fair draw, 1-1 kind of game, although Boro did have the better chances second half to win the game. So I think both teams will come away positive. Maybe it's a better point for Boro than it is Burnley, because of course Burnley want to keep up with the incredible pace set by the teams in and around the top three. But Boro getting a point there, it's good. It's a solid point. It proves we can hang with the best of them in the league. Burnley, I think, given Boro's chances in the second half, will also take it. Leeds 2, Derby County 0. No surprise there. The first of the two games I predicted bang on. I did say Leeds 2, Derby 0. I just felt Derby would make it awkward for Leeds, and that's why I didn't go all out on a 3, 4, 5-0 victory. And Derby did that, but you know, this was a shoe-in really. It would have been a shock if the result was anything other than a Leeds win. They're just ridiculous at home. You know, 7 straight league wins for Leeds now, conceding only once at home in that time. It's a matter of if and not when Leeds score at home, and if they can just convert that into a victory. Credit to Derby, though, for keeping the score down, but it was always going to be tough for them. You know, they only had one shot on target in this game. It's not a result that Derby should judge their season on, really, but it is three defeats in a row for them now, and only 1 win in 10. So Derby need to just brush this game off and get back to winning ways as soon as they can, because they are starting to slide a little bit towards the bottom end of the table. Leeds, though, do what they do. Whenever they suffer a setback, they get back on the horse, especially at home. They just start winning again. Sheffield Wednesday 1, Preston 1. I edged Sheffield Wednesday to win this game, but in fact it could have been Preston who come out on the winning side of this one. I think they'll maybe be a little bit annoyed that they didn't come out on the winning side here. Preston, they had more XG, much higher XG at 3.34, so the chances and the quality of chances they created were huge, and I think that probably goes to Potts' absolute stinker of a miss when I think he could have put Preston 2-0 up at that point. It was an absolutely shocking miss from him, so the game maybe should have been out of reach from Sheffield Wednesday at that point, but Preston failed to put the game away, and Sheffield Wednesday, via a bit of help from Freddie Woodman, it has to be said, got themselves level. He did go from hero to zero. He saved a pretty poor penalty from Windass in the second half, but Smith's scuffed effort was badly dealt with by the goalkeeper, allowing Sheffield Wednesday to get themselves back into it. I mean, they had enough chances too, Sheffield Wednesday, but I think Preston will be kicking themselves that in two really key moments in the game, they missed a chance to go 2-1 up or 2-0 up, and they also failed to keep the ball out the back of their net when they maybe should have. So I think Sheffield Wednesday will definitely take a point. Preston might be kicking themselves. They didn't take all 3. Sunderland 2, Stoke 1. I thought Sunderland would get back to winning ways here, and they did. Not by the 1-0 score, I thought, but by 2-1. And they did well, given the fact that Stoke took the lead early on in the 6th minute, responding pretty much instantaneously with Watson equalising on the 7th minute. And then it was a case of Sunderland banging on the door and just hoping that it would open and they wouldn't suffer another frustrating draw. This time they didn't, however, with Tommy Watson stepping up again. And I've got to say, I have no idea where this kid has come from, but he looks pretty exciting on the left-hand side. Is he that Jack Clark replacement that they've been looking for. We'll have to wait and see. But I mean, he hit the post as well. He had a number of really good opportunities. He looked good last week against Sheffield United as well. I think he won the penalty for them that night. But yeah, he's a really, really exciting talent coming through at Sunderland, and he did give them the win that they absolutely deserved. You look at the chances and the XG. I mean, it was a game dominated by Sunderland. It'd have been quite criminal had they not won it, and I think it was important that they did, because it's a game they should be winning if they have aspirations of top 2 or playoffs this season. It ended the rot of draws and got them the win that they absolutely deserved. Hull 0, Blackburn Rovers 1. Now on the outset I looked at this and I thought, oh dear, Hull have lost again. 6 defeats in a row. Blackburn, great form, solid win. But that's not what the stats tell you. You know, Hull, I think, were well in this game. They had more shots than Blackburn, more shots on target. Same old story for Hull. They just can't find a way of putting the ball in the back of the net. Blackburn keep finding a way to win though. 1-0. They didn't score with their only shot on target because it was an own goal, I believe. But only had 1 shot on target. Only 5 shots in the whole game. But when you're in form and your luck's in, results just seem to swing your way. And that's what Blackburn have done here. They've come away from Hull, probably not performing at their absolute best, but they've, as a couple of Blackburn fans said, shithoused another 1-0 via John Eustace. It's their third 1-0 win in a row. 4 wins in a row for Blackburn now. And listen, although this probably wasn't the most convincing of the 3, great run of form that they're on. They're not conceding goals. It's always the same with Blackburn, you know, it's consistency. Can they keep this level going? We'll have to wait and see. Hull, though, just desperately need Ruben Selles to get his feet under the table and get them turning in the right direction, because they've dropped to the bottom of the Championship now. As I said, 6 defeats in a row. They're desperate for this new start, and they're desperate for it quickly. Millwall 0, Coventry 1. A surprising result. I've got to be honest, I thought Millwall might edge Coventry here, but the Frank Lampard era is off and running with their first victory, and you've got to say it's sort of well deserved, really. Millwall quite disappointing going forward here at home. 9 shots, not a single shot on target, which I think at home is criminal, really. Whereas Coventry, they look quite dangerous at times, create quite a few really good opportunities. 2 goals in 2 for Mason Clark, which is really, really awesome for him, but I think even more so for Coventry. 2 big wins here. First is just beating Millwall, who've been unbeaten for quite a prolonged spell now, and also I think keeping a clean sheet, because they've not had enough of them this season. They've been conceding a lot of goals recently as well, so I think both the away win to Millwall, the Den is never an easy place to go, plus a clean sheet is really, really important for Coventry. So we'll see if this is Frank Lampard firing Coventry in the right direction. Millwall, though, just starting to plateau a little bit. As I say, winless in 4, first defeat in 10, not a shot on target, not a good day at the office. Portsmouth 3, Bristol City 0. What a fantastic result this is for Pompey. Finally, have they adjusted to the Championship? Have they finally got themselves going? Are they finally getting themselves towards safety? We'll have to wait and see. But this was by far their best performance of the season, and I'm delighted for them as well. 3-0 winners here, back-to-back home wins for Pompey. And what I found quite impressive is that they've scored 6 goals in their last 2 home games and 8 in their last 3. Obviously, they scored 2 at Swansea. Got a bit lucky that Swansea didn't have their shooting boots on there, but I think if Pompey can do what Oxford and Derby have done in the early stages, and that's just win their home games, they're going to give themselves a chance. You know, I think away in the Championship, away trips for newly promoted teams are always going to be difficult, and I don't think you can expect to win most of them. It's your home form, which I think promoted sides have to ensure is up to standard, and Pompey maybe finally are finding that at Fratton Park. It should be a tough place to go. It should be a horrible place to go for teams, and it might just be becoming that now. So a fantastic result for Pompey. And Bristol City were really poor here. I thought Pompey forced them into some really, bad defensive mistakes, but equally Bristol City looked horrendous at the back at times, and I gave them a bit of leeway because, it's 4 defeats in 6 for them, and a couple of them defeats had come against really, really good teams, but going to Portsmouth and losing 3-0 is pretty much inexcusable, to be honest with you. So a really, really bad result for Bristol City, and they're in a bit of a slump now that need to get themselves out of. Luton 1, Swansea 1. I don't know how I feel about this one, because Luton always seem to pick up more points at home, and they don't concede as many at home, but still, this is not what they need. You know, they took the lead. They weren't able to close it out. It's just the one single point. I still don't feel like this is lift-off and all that big of a step forward for Luton Town, if I'm honest. And I think if you look at the stats, it's not great reading for them either. You know, they were gifted the goal, you could say, via a bad back pass from Cabango, it might have been. And after that, Luton only had one more shot on target. They had 2 shots on target in the whole game, which isn't great. Swansea had 10. 20 shots, 10 on target, double the XG that Luton had. So again, teams are still finding it really easy to create chances against this Luton team, and I guess they were just maybe lucky on this occasion. Swansea didn't take them, although Matt Grimes took his chance extremely well. So I still think, all things considered, Luton will probably be happy to take a point here, but given the stats and how many chances Swansea had, still don't think it's particularly good reading for Luton. QPR 3, Norwich 0. Another result I did not see coming at all. Now, I did have my reservations about Norwich steamrolling QPR, because the 2 big things I said in my prediction video were that, Norwich have scored 10 in their last 2 at home, but as I said, they were against the 2 worst defences and probably the 2 worst travellers in the Championship in Luton and Plymouth. And as I've said for a few weeks, there are still a few things about Norwich that are holding me back. 1 is when they're not at home and when they're on the road, and 2 is when Borja Sainz is not firing, and that kind of proven to be the case here. Now, I will hold up a little bit of not an excuse for Norwich, but there were 2 very tight offside calls, which I still don't know if they were right or wrong. I think the Sainz one is probably tighter, so they might feel a little bit sort of hard done by there. But even then, QPR still scored 3 goals against them, and it's their first home win of the season, which I find absolutely mental. So for Norwich to go to QPR, who've been winless at home, and lose 3-0, let's not beat around the bush. It's a shocking result from Norwich, and it's why I just can't get behind them. You know, they're just not consistently good enough home and away, and there's too many really big factors I feel like they rely on, and if they're not firing, they can struggle, and that shows here. You know, QPR, first win, as I say, at home, unbeaten in 4 now, and when we look at the league table at the end, it's actually unbelievable the job that Cifuentes has done in the last couple of games, and it shows if you're a team down there, all you need is a nice little purple patch. It doesn't have to be that prolonged, and your fortunes can be transformed, and that goes to show, you know, how QPR have just changed it around within a very, very small spell. You know, unbeaten in 4, 2 wins in that time, conceding only once in them 4 with 3 clean sheets. Brilliant turnaround, and it certainly gives them hope, as did Colley, the young little 19-year-old centre forward or striker or winger or attacker who come in for Salah, who went off injured. What a great brace from him. Fantastic to see that. Yeah, also good for Jimmy Dunn to score, given the fact he'd lost his father earlier in the week too. But a fantastic result for QPR. They might be about to steer themselves away from danger, which is quite incredible, and all credit goes to Cifuentes. As for Norwich, this is exactly why I just don't quite trust them. Finally, West Brom 2, Sheffield United 2. I was going to say a rare draw for Sheffield United, but it's not all that rare for West Brom, is it? It's a good draw for West Brom. It's a good point for West Brom. They're only the second team to take something away from Sheffield United in their last 8 games, the other being the 2-2 draw, of course, against Coventry. But even though it's a fantastic draw for West Brom on paper, it's their 10th draw in 11 league games, which I find absolutely mad. I think they'll be a little frustrated that they not only lost the lead early on, but went behind as quickly as they did, with Sheffield United turning the game round in a matter of minutes. But a fortunate, you would have to say, Tom Fellowes shot cross looped into the corner, gifting West Brom a point, and I think they'll absolutely take it, given the context of the opposition and the form that Sheffield United have been in. But Sheffield United have ticked another tough place off, you know, another tough place to go in the league. And again, the best teams don't win, they ensure that they don't lose either. So a look at the Championship League table then before we wrap up. As always, Sheffield United have retaken the lead at the top of the Championship by just 1 single point. With Leeds dropping down to second, they're right alongside them. Burnley hovering around in third, and Sunderland are hanging on to the coattails of the top 3 on 36 points. Then there is a substantial gap to Boro and the playoff chasers, and I think that top three, that automatic promotion race, I think it's starting to show now. You know, I've said for a while the top three will be the top three. Sheffield United, Leeds and Burnley just look like they're a level above everyone else, and although Sunderland deserve immense credit for being right there with them still at this point, Sunderland have been massively propped up with, you know, that amazing start that they had. They have won this weekend, but it is only their first win in what was 6 previous winless games. So I still feel like over the 46-game spell, the top three, who are the top three now, will stay there. Sunderland, I think, will fall away, but I still think will more than comfortably be in the playoffs. I'd be shocked if Sunderland fell out at this point. It would be a disaster if they did. And then it's a case of the playoff pack. I think Boro will still be very much in there, just going through a very tough run of games right now. And the chasing pack, I think beyond Sunderland and Boro, it's all down to who can be the most consistent. You know, Blackburn are the latest to string a good run together, getting them into the top 6. Watford, though, could get there if they're inconsistent. Up and down form can level out. West Brom need to stop drawing games, but they're still within touch to a degree. And I think from 9th downwards, I just don't consider Sheffield Wednesday in the race. There is a 3-point gap between West Brom and Wednesday. And I think from 9th downwards, you are starting to see mid-table forming there. So I think the top three are forming an automatic promotion run. And I think from Sunderland down to West Brom, you've got 5 teams there who I think will make up the final 3 playoff positions. As we head into mid-table, I think there's a few teams in there that will be disappointed that they've fallen away. But I think naturally, you know, I look at Norwich, Millwall and Bristol City as 3 teams who I've said many times will flirt, but just will not have enough to maintain a push. But, you know, given the nature of the league, I think any of these teams, if they can hit the right run of purple form towards the end, I think any of these teams could still sneak in at the end if they can get a good run going at the right time. But they are very much mid-table at this moment. And then you go down towards the bottom, and this is where a lot of things have took really, really interesting turns. The drama at the bottom is heating up. QPR have gotten themselves out of the bottom 3, which I think is an amazing achievement given where they were. But the big caveat has to be that Cardiff, Plymouth have a game in hand. Portsmouth have 2 games in hand. But still, the turnaround in the recent form that QPR have gotten is amazing. And as I said when I touched upon the game, it's crazy how one little good, you know, mini purple patch can transform your fortunes at the bottom of the league. And I think that's where teams like Plymouth need to start worrying, because all of their numbers tell you that they're pretty much bottom for everything. And I think they're starting to find themselves dropping into that position now. It all depends on how Ruben Sellers gets on at Hull. A manager bounce could get them out of trouble. So I still feel like Hull will claw themselves out eventually. And Pompey have turned around as well. So I think the teams who maybe need to worry, Plymouth, Cardiff, need to decide what on earth they're doing with their new manager. And I do worry for Oxford. And I still am not all that convinced Luton are out of the woods yet. And even Derby might slip down there if they can't sort themselves out. But let me know your thoughts on the results, your team's result this weekend, and just your general thoughts on the Championship fixtures. And always, hit a like on the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for much more. We do round up every round of Championship games and predict the ones that we have time for in the schedule. Sadly, there won't be time to predict the midweek games this week, but we will be back to round them up in and around Thursday or Friday. But until then, guys, do take care, have a good week, and I'll see you all in the next one.